Hey, live here. We've talked a lot about ketosis. We've talked a lot about fasting, intermittent fasting, all types of fasting, partial fasting, but I kind of want to bring it into context here in something usable, because if something can work for cancer, then I think it really shows that it can work for just about anything. So in this video, I want to talk about this right here. Cancer as a metabolic disease. Thomas Seyfried. Thomas Seyfried was the author of this book, and now he and a growing number of scientists are realizing the power of fasting and ketosis in cancer. And again, if it can work for cancer, it can work for just about anything. There's a growing number of conditions today that we're realizing that are associated with the mitochondria. And I don't want to bore you with the science. The mitochondria is in every cell, and that's where you make energy. But for years now, we've been putting billions of dollars into cancer research. Here's the problem. Are we getting anywhere? I think the obvious answer is we're not getting anywhere. So the war on cancer, yeah, we're getting our asses kicked. Now, the problem is this. Where are they putting the billions of dollars? The facts are that they're putting it now into more genetic type of therapies. Obviously, they're putting it into chemo, obviously radiation, and those weapons of choice. And obviously, we're not winning the war, and I don't remember where it was in here in the book, but one of the first chapters, Seyfried's a brilliant scientist, and he laid out, and by the way, you have to kind of understand, you know, this has been his research his whole entire life. He was on the side of doing genomic research, chemo. I mean, this was this guy's life. And now he's on the side of a more natural approach, utilizing ketosis and fasting. So imagine that transition, right? But you know, when he put this book together, he really showed just how worthless most of these efforts have been. And really, he went back and he looked at something that Otto Warburg in the early 1900s discovered. And it's called the Warburg phenomenon. And during the 20th century, he made something very popular, that the mitochondria in the cell are malfunctioning. Mostly, we believe, due to toxins, right? Toxins damage the mitochondria. But here's the point. It creates what we call basically a glucose fermentation, okay, where it's taking glucose and fermenting it. It's a primitive form of making energy. So what happens is that the cell starts to malfunction and start this process of this ancient way of fermenting glucose. Okay, I've lost you, but I don't need you to know that. What I need you to know is this, that most people right now, that your cells are losing the ability to use fat as an energy source, and they're basically only able to use glucose. That's a problem that relates to fatigue, weight gain, weight loss resistance, fatty liver, brain fog. I can go down the list. That's happening to most people. Now, it takes it a step further with further damage, and it starts this process of this ancient fermentation. So the problem is Warburg realized that if we could switch the cell's energy to using mostly fat, ketosis, fat adapted, right? Cancer cells can't use, most cancer cells, and we can make mention of that, most cancer cells can't use fat for an energy source. They can only use glucose. So therefore, we can weaken the cancer cells by starving out its fuel source when we move it from sugar to fat. That was discovery number one. Now, Seyfried took it to a whole nother level, you know, in this book. So, you know, this book is a little rough. It's a little scientific. Chris Christopherson actually wrote a different book called Tripping Over the Truth of Cancer. It's cellular healing episodes, and you can get a lot out of that interview and his book. But also Thomas Seyfried, interviewing him twice on Cellular Healing TV. Go back and watch those interviews. Share and like those, and or share and like this with other people, because they will want to see that, especially people who are challenged with cancer. But look, the bottom line is this. Through what he has done with his studies, they're realizing that moving the cell in a state of ketosis not only is changing the epigenome, but also is starving the cancer cells of its fuel source. And now that weakens it. Now the body's own immune system has a chance. Okay, so we're taking ketosis and fasting and now bringing it to a whole nother level with a condition like cancer. All right, so the billions are being spent on genetics. And unfortunately, according to Seyfried, that it's basically not, this is not a genetic disorder. One of the early things that he did is he took cells and put them in petri dishes, and by taking out the nucleus, okay, that's where the DNA is. Now, what has happened is that they realized that, of course, the cell lives on, and cancer is not replicated, etc. The bottom line is that through these early studies, you know, it was early proof that this is not a DNA problem. This was early proof, I'm getting that there was something else going on. Cancer as a metabolic disease, meaning that the mitochondria are not fat adapted. And so, you know, this is a disrupted mitochondrial problem, hence the name. Cancer is a metabolic disease. It's a problem with the mitochondria. It's a problem with its inability to use fat for energy. So, you know, this has now, his results with this, using ketosis and fasting and different fasts, have been outstanding. So imagine what it does for the average person. And by the way, we all have cancer cells in us. So therefore, you know, we're getting bad cells not to adapt. I think that as this, you know, this went on, it became more of another reason why this is working is because we know that what happens in a fast is all of your immune cells are being starved down. The key is what happens after, because now adaptation occurs and stem cells are forming. And now you make these new immune cells and new cells in general. So, you know, we know that's a factor. And what about, I've talked a little bit about autophagy or autophagy, where the bad cells don't adapt. And that's part of the brilliance here of why this is working. So we know that, look, the billions are being spent in cancer saying this is a genetic disorder. It's not. This is, you know, useless money being spent instead of putting it into the fact that this is a metabolic problem. And we have answers. The problem is there's no money in it, right? Drug companies can't box fasting and ketosis and make a bunch of money and put a bunch of patents on it. So he's having trouble getting funding for this. So Dr. Warburg at the turn of the century realizes this phenomenon of here's the problem. This is why cancer is forming. Seyfried takes it to the next step, putting these amazing things in place that nobody's finding out about. Another reason why you need to share this and like this, because people need to hear the message, because the right person's going to hear, and they're going to be able to say, I want to fund this research. So do this for this man who's making a difference on this planet. On Cell TV, I interviewed other scientists that are also doing studies in this very area. And, you know, the science is clear. This is not a genetic disorder. Chemo and radiation, I'm not telling anybody not to do any of these things. I'm not. What I'm saying is educate yourselves to understand that this is not the lack of chemo problem, that this is not a genetic disorder, is genes the way we think about it. It's not going to happen. The answer does not lie there, and it's not my opinion. It's these experts here. So we need to get people to realize there's another way. I've got a brilliant idea. How about before you get cancer, you fast even once a year, intermittent fast daily. Put yourself in and out of ketosis, diet variation, right? That's why in the wintertime I'm in ketosis. Summertime I go on a healthy, higher carbohydrate diet. Moving in and out this spring I'm going to do a fast. My son just got done doing a fast. These are the things that we know can prevent this horrific disease that's affecting so many. You heard my wife's story, who they basically said, these cells aren't going to change. You know, you're going to end up in cancer. You're one step away from cancer. She was a phase 4 cervical dysplasia, and look what fasting did for her. There's always another way. The problem is there's no money. We've got to get the word out. get people to watch this, share this, get people to watch those cellular healing episodes where I've interviewed the experts in this and listen to their opinion, not mine. Have the people that need to hear this listen to that. But listen, everybody needs to hear this, because cancer, no doubt, is toxins damaging the mitochondria, the diets that we're doing, the toxins we're exposed to. This is the cause. The cure will never lie anywhere except getting rid of the cause. The problem is we've got to fix the damaged mitochondria and the damaged cells. You will not get well until you fix the cell. And I'll add one thing to these ancient healing strategies that this scientist is talking about: cellular detox. You've got to get to the cell and detox the cell. That's real detox. If the mitochondria are being damaged by the toxins in the cell, then we better fix that problem. In other words, a colon cleanse is not necessarily the answer. Coffee enema, not the answer. Now, I'm about ready to do a coffee enema. I got to do a Facebook Live on this tomorrow, I think. So I love coffee enemas. They help get that liver moving. However, you've got to detox the cell. That's where real detox is, true cellular detox. I'm not against a colon cleanse. I'm not against getting the bowels to move in any way. But again, real detox has to occur at the cell. So that's the key. You put that together with some of these ancient healing strategies: ketosis, moving in and out, diet variation, fasting of all sorts. And I'll tell you, the answer's there. We just got to figure out a way to get someone with enough money to put it into these things, and let's get the message out there. So, these videos are important. That's why I'm doing them. I have a very unique message that I only know because I went through my only battle. My years in school do not give me the authority to bring the message. Trust me. When I was in Africa, and I was there 3 times, I stepped off stage and I had the privilege of educating many leaders in Africa. And one of them came up to me and said, "Dr. Pompa," I don't even remember what I said that ignited this conversation. He said, "Your authority does not come from your years of school. Your authority comes in the victory God gave you." That changed my world that day. And I say that all the time, that was a transition in my mind. That, man, my authority doesn't come from even my ability to read these studies and, do that. My authority comes from what God gave me, the victory God gave me and what I battled. So sharing like this message of cancer, where the real problem lies is the mitochondria. Cancer is a metabolic disease, and the billions of dollars are being spent other places. So the things that you learned right here, and if you didn't watch the episodes, the past parts that I've done on fasting, do so. I started it going into ketosis and how we utilize ketones, how we become fat adapted in the cell. So this in lies part of the answer. True cellular detox, part of the answer. So, and again, I will continue to kind of bring some of these things into other conditions so you can see, how this plays. I'm going to do one coming up on thyroid because I had so many questions on that. I'm probably going to have to go to my whiteboard on that. I'm going to also do one on weight loss, why people can't lose weight. I had some requests email-wise on that as well. So I don't know if I had any question, but you know what? I'll make sure I get to them, and I'll answer your questions and comments. But make comments and share. My dogs, they're saying I'm done. So anyways, see you on tomorrow's video. It's going to be a good one. I think I'm going to do it on how the coffee enema is, the ins and outs, because it is part of how we keep downstream detox pathways open, and because the liver can play a significant role. Coffee enemas have more to do with the liver than anything else, because the caffeine actually helps push the toxic bile out of the liver. But there's some tricks I've learned in training hundreds of doctors and some on these things, and some tricks I've learned along the way. I'm going to give you tomorrow, so stay tuned for that. It's a simple way to decrease your food sensitivities. It's a simple way to get your bowels moving. People don't think liver when they think constipation. It's a simple way to get rid of brain fog and have more energy. And when you combine that with some of the true cellular detox strategies that I do, and again, for any of those things, I have articles about true cellular detox on my website. I've done so many cellular healing TV episodes. So all that information's there. I'll see you on tomorrow's show.